arrival, the scopes will be received in the open, and people will know who has arrived, and the responsibility of the Secretariat is just to organize the sequence.
Despite some challenges, INEC describes Saturday's elections as largely successful.
As candidates await verdict of the electorate, National Coalition Center set to receive presidential results.
Acting Inspector General of Police warns against unofficial announcement of results and a breach of the public peace.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we focus on post-election analysis of the 2019 presidential and National Assembly elections.
Nigerians finally went to the polls on Saturday to exercise their franchise in the rescheduled presidential and National Assembly elections, which were shifted from the 16th of February this year.
Of course, Kingsley, all across the country, elections held, of course, except in a few places. But the results have already started trickling in.
And Claire, Nigerians are quite anxious about the outcome of the elections.
Precisely.
But many are also concerned about the process, indicating, for instance, there were instances of violence, ballot box snatching, late arrival of materials, card reader failures, and disruptions of the elections, among others, which were recorded in some of the polling units.
Indeed, Kingsley, and comparatively with other, previous elections, the elections on the whole were described as generally peaceful, and of course the electorate maintained a very good conduct. But INEC has since explained that they have responded to those challenges which you mentioned.
All right, so this morning we intend to do an analysis of the elections as we engage those who watch the process around the country.
And of course, apart from engaging our guests, we shall also interact with some of our correspondents who have been working day and night from their various network centers across the country to, of course, update us on what they experienced on the field.
All right, and I hope you recall that there were indeed 3 elections that took place last Saturday. There was the presidential election, the Senate elections, as well as the House of Representatives elections. Already, some of the results for the National Assembly, that's to say for the Senate and the House of Representatives, have been announced by the various returning officers at location. But for the presidential election, there is a National Coalition Center at the International Conference Center in Abuja. It was opened yesterday, and it's due again to reopen this morning at 11. That's to say, the results, of course, will be compiled there and announced state by state as they come in from the various returning officers. Of course, we'll keep you posted on developments coming out of the International Conference Center, which is the National Coalition Center for the results of the presidential election. It's on that note we'd like to welcome you to this edition of Good Morning Nigeria. My name is Kingsley Osadolo.
Of course, Kingsley, reminding the viewer about the other elections. Indeed, we tend to forget that there are 3 elections, but of course, the bigger of the 3 is the presidential elections.
They are the biggest. They are the biggest. No doubt about that. Yes.
Well,
because, the entire country is the president's constituency. In other words, for you to become a president, you have to take the entire country as your constituency. 774 local governments, 36 states plus the federal capital territory. And the threshold, of course, for winning are also clearly stipulated in the Constitution as amended.
Indeed. I am Claire Delabu Abdul Razak. Always a pleasure to have you join us here on Good Morning Nigeria. We're broadcasting live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, here in Abuja. Of course, Abuja is Nigeria's largest capital city. As always, we have the complimentary part of the program. We will be bringing them to you in the course of the program. We're talking about newspaper review. Bayo, hopefully, will be joining us later on. There'll be business news, and that will be interesting to see what has happened, of course, between a day or two after the elections. We'll also be looking at sports, and there'll be foreign news. Of course, Senegal started its own election yesterday.
That's right. That's right. That's, as it were, this is a year of elections on the African continent. South Africa is also getting set for their own elections. That's 25 years after the dawn of democracy in that country. Last December, of course, you saw the elections in Madagascar, and there are a number of other countries that are all lined up. DRC had theirs, Mozambique and Namibia, and I think also Botswana. They are all scheduled to have their various elections.
Indeed. All right, it's the news now, and Nolin Abel Ame. Nolin, were you also, disenfranchised as a result of being on duty?
Yeah, good morning, Claire. I tried my best possible to do election after duty. Good morning, Nigeria. This is the news. Collation of presidential results from states has commenced at the International Conference Center, Abuja. INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, opened the center after updating Nigerians on some events of the elections.
While in all these attacks, election staff sustained injuries, we have unfortunately recorded the first fatality in Rivers State.
Arrival, the scopes will be received in the open, and people will know who has arrived, and the responsibility of the Secretariat is just to organize the sequence of presentation by the scope.
Youth Initiative for Advocacy, Growth and Advancement, YAGA Africa's parallel vote tabulation situation room for the presidential election says the few hitches experienced during the conduct of the February 23rd poll do not necessarily undermine the overall credibility of the process. This was at their preliminary media briefing in Abuja.
A lot of data that's still coming in, because this is preliminary, things could change.
We salute every Nigerian for braving the odds in spite of the difficulties.
Former Liberian President and head of the ECOWAS Election Observer Mission, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, has presented the ECOWAS Election Observer Mission's preliminary declaration on the conduct of the 2019 general elections. Dennis Adegunloye reports that the delay of the arrival of electoral materials and subsequent late start of the accreditation and voting process in many units was an issue of note for the Commission.
The ECOWAS Observation Mission considers the electoral process were largely peaceful and transparent, as voters were able to cast their votes freely. The Commission commends the Independent National Electoral Commission for dedication and professionalism and appreciates the effort of political parties for their commitment and their demonstration of maturity during the process.
Acting Inspector General of Police Mohammed Abubakar Adamu warned that no one should engage in unlawful announcement and dissemination of election results on any platform, as that remains in the jurisdiction of the electoral umpire, INEC. In a statement by the Force Public Relations Officer Frank Mba, acting IGP also commended Nigerians for their massive turnout and orderly conduct during the presidential and National Assembly elections. He also commended the personnel of the Nigeria Police Force and other security agencies for their sacrifices towards the successful conduct of the election. The acting IGP indicates that notwithstanding a few unfortunate incidents, including loss of lives, were recorded in few places, the exercise was generally peaceful, stating that the number of arrests for various electoral offenses across the country stands at 128. The IGP has directed the Special election investigation team to immediately commence discreet investigation of all security-related infractions during the election and ensure that all persons found culpable are brought to book in accordance with the law. Polling stations officially opened at 8 a.m. in most voting centers in Dakar, and people came out peacefully to vote and went about their normal everyday business. Our correspondent in Dakar, Julieta Aino, went round some voting centers in the city to capture the mood.
Happy to see what is happening here in Senegal. People did begin at time with discipline, and everybody decided to come to vote. It's very important for our sub-region. I think that I'm very happy, and what I saw this morning, I would like maybe to continue, and I wish that each citizen of Senegal to come to vote. It is a duty for every of them, and God will bless his country.
That's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Kingsley and Claire after this break. Thank you.
So, how do I look, guys?
Aha! I see what's wrong.
What?
The wall doesn't match your elegance.
Then we must do something about it right away.
At Royal Ceramics, we offer you a wide range of beautiful woolen floor tiles designed specially to fit your lifestyle.
So, what do you guys think?
Thank goodness we changed to Royal Ceramic tiles.
I agree.
Like mother, like daughter.
Royal Ceramics, finish in style.
Your perfect family is under threat by germs. Infectious diseases are now the world's biggest killer of adults and children. These infectious diseases are caused by germs. They are everywhere. An average human being comes in contact with over 1 million germs daily in unclean water, dirty surfaces, in the toilets, on cuts and wounds, on your clothes. Germs can cause deadly diseases like typhoid, diarrhea, flu, and cough. To protect your family from germs, use the power of Dettol's One Capful for surface cleaning in your bathing water, in your laundry water, for first aid to protect your family from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Introducing Dettol Antiseptic Liquid in Sachet for only 40 naira.
Endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association.
Getting around heartburn and indigestion can be tricky if you eat too much. Eat food that is too spicy or greasy, or lie down after eating. Heartburn and indigestion could always be around the corner. When they come, be prepared with Gaviscon Double Action. It works within 3 minutes and lasts up to 8 hours. Gaviscon Double Action. Many causes, one solution.
All right, let's talk business now. And as Nigerians await the result of the 2019 Presidential and National Assembly election, economic analysts say they want Nigeria to consider the use of technology, of course, additional use of technology to curtail huge losses incurred as a result of restriction of movement during the period. We have details of this and other trending business stories with Joy Uzo.
Election times comes with lots of economic activities where some gains and losses are recorded. Some Nigerians had to travel from their residential areas to other states or locations to be able to vote at their registered polling units. The lockdown associated with restriction of movement and closure of the nation's borders all affects the economy, particularly small-scale businesses. For entrepreneurs like Mrs. Esther Azaya, it's an economic sacrifice she is willing to make, but hoping that elected officials will make it worthwhile.
My job falls during the weekends, so definitely all my weekends for the 16th was cancelled. On the 23rd again, we had to go out to vote, and resuming work the next day afterwards, the business was not as it's meant to be.
Economic expert Chijioke Kechukwu calls for more use of technology to reduce economic losses during elections.
In this era of technology, this should be the last time people should be made to move from one point of the country to another just because they want to vote. Technology is there to make sure people vote from wherever they are. And we need to ask for that technology. It is available. People should go about their businesses, go and vote, and go back to your business. And so that is the way to go, so that we don't continue to incur losses to individuals and losses to government and corporate bodies.
And to equities, a total turnover of 1.481 billion shares worth 17.647 billion naira in 20,449 deals were traded last week by investors on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. The NSE All-Share Index and market capitalization depreciated by 0.61% to close the week at 32,515.52 and 12.126 trillion naira respectively. Similarly, all other indices finished lower with the exception of the NSE ASEM, NSE Banking, NSE Insurance, NSE AFR Bank Value, and NSE Oil and Gas indices, which rose by 0.96%, 0.68%, 0.02%, 0.95%, and 0.13% respectively. The financial services industry, measured by volume, led the activity chart with 1.038 billion shares, valued at 10.170 billion naira, traded in 12.232 deals. With Business News, I'm Joy Uzo.
Thank you very much, Joy Uzo, for the business package. Newspaper review is next for us on Good Morning Nigeria.
And Bayo Atoyebi is here. Bayo,
yes.
How did your Saturday, Sunday go?
Fine, election watching, and I enjoyed it. So results are beginning to tumble and trickle in. And national
tumble and trickle in.
Yes,
I like that.
National Collation Center opened 11 a.m. today. That is when the result for the states will start coming. Good morning. Good morning, Kingsley.
And the post-election
Good morning,
fever.
Nigeria. Yes.
It's very high.
Yes. One thing about elections is everybody wins. But whoever wins the majority votes carries the day.
What did you say? Everybody wins?
Everybody wins. Whoever wins the majority carries the day.
That's the philosophy. But reality is different. You want to tell those, because see, I think that I understand what you are saying. That's just on a philosophical basis. But, you know, the nature of our electoral system is the winner take all. In other words, if you score, let's say, 1,000 votes, and I scored 999 votes, I would have lost, along with those persons who voted for me. Yes. But if it were a proportional representation system that we have, then it would be a different system. It would be a different ballgame altogether. I will be entitled to some seats. You will also be entitled to some seats. That's why there have been stories of persons who have collapsed on hearing the results. So you say those are a person who collapses is a winner. Okay, it's interesting. I mean, the election fever is like you write an exam and you are waiting the result. Yeah. You know, every time you see the you'll be paying like this.
You know what my son said? You know what my son said, Mommy, now all these are leaders. We know how it is to wait for jam results.
That's right. That's right.
All right, let's begin.
Okay, all the papers, I mean, as you can expect, the front pages are all stories on the elections. Let's take a look at Let's begin with the Nigerian Tribune. I will take this story from above the nameplate and then just go right down from there to the end. It's too early to blame police and military for security lapses. That's according to the ANEC chairman, and says commission not aware of underage voting. Details can be found on page 29. And very quickly, below the nameplate of the paper, Atiku condemns deadly election violence, calls for peace. That's on page 8. Dixon sets up panel on killings and violence, page 8 as well. And police arrest 128 for electoral offenses. That's to be found on page 29. Next story, Saraki loses, Dogara wins as results trickle in. The story is on page 2 in greater detail. You can see the Senate president there to the left of that's the left photograph, and his conqueror, they say, in Oloriegbe. You have a number of riders there with regard to what the results are showing. It said Buhari leading in Kano, PDP leading in Enugu and Anambra. PDP wins Oredo federal constituency in Edo. PDP candidate wins, and APC candidate, you have all win, and so on and so forth. Claire.
Indeed, I have win too on the front pages. Let me start with the Daily Independent. And the Daily Independent, I like to take it from above the nameplate. It says, pressure mounts on Akwa Ibom wreck to declare Akpabio winner. Details of that on page 5. And Atiku Lords Nigerians says, collated results show he's leading. Page 5. Now, Saraki loses Senate seat as APC clears polls in Kwara. Of course, Kingsley said that earlier on. That's Oluri Egbe, defeating the incumbent Senate president. But the headline news this morning, coming from the Daily Independent, presidential poll, APC, PDP bicker ahead of collision of results. Now, there are 3 riders. PDP planning to announce fake results, APC alleges. Declare Atiku Abubakar winner now, PDP tells INEC. And the last one, APC criticizes party for asking INEC to declare Atiku winner. Okay, let's go to the ugly side. Just trending on the right column there, that will be to your left. Gunmen kill 5 in Taraba, 3 in Kogi. Page 41. Police arrest 128 persons for alleged electoral offences. You can find the details of that on page 41. And PDP demands release of Buba Galadima. That's on page 2. Now, the picture story, you find, of course, the Chairman, Independent National Electoral Commission, Mahmoud Yakubu, and other members of the electoral body during a press briefing to update on the collation of presidential and National Assembly election results in Abuja. That was yesterday, of course. It also marked the opening of the collation center. Now, observers say more than 40 killed in poor violence, and lots of riders there. Atiku laments violence, loss of lives. INEC condemns killing of adult staff and violence, and U.S. warns against killings in rivers. I think I've taken almost everything on the front page. Bayo.
Yes, by way of background, of course, everybody knows that the presidential and National Assembly elections took place on Saturday. Voting commenced timelessly in some states like Adamawa, Bauchi, Ebonyi, and Cross River. In other states, it started lately, and this includes Bayelsa, Abia, Borno, Yobe, and they all started far behind time. There was extension of time for them to catch up, particularly that they didn't start at the 8 o'clock that was required. There were violence in some states, and there were early morning explosives in Maiduguri between 5:30 and 6 a.m. There were also some explosions reported in Yobe. Governor Shetima of Borno State came out, and when he voted, he urged citizens to come out and vote. If even you are not going to vote for me, please come out and vote and show the terrorists that they cannot cow us. President Muhammadu Buhari and his wife voted at Kofarbaru Ward. Alhaji Atiku Abubakar and his wife voted at Ajia Ward in Jimeta Yola. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo voted at the Victoria Garden City in Lagos, while Mr. Peter Obi voted at Aniocha Ward. As been reported, there were a lot of violence and some fatalities. 6 deaths were reported in River, 3 in Kogi, 5 in Taraba, 2 in Bayelsa. Borno, Bauchi also had 2 deaths each, while there were 1 death each reported in Ebonyi, Zamfara, Oyo, and Lagos. Police says 28 persons have been arrested for election-related violences and offenses, and they are to be investigated and will be prosecuted. It's the first time the police is being very proactive about election violence. Voters showed enthusiasm. They turned out en masse, and there were smart card challenges. After identification, some persons did not have the smart card register their fingerprints. However, they were able to vote. Some of these include the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, Governor Seriake Dixon, and Speaker Yakubu Dogara. But they were all identified and used, they thumbprinted on the ballot, the voters register, and were able to vote. Governor Aminu Waziri Tambuwal of Sokoto expressed satisfaction with the elections. The reports of ballot box snatching and ballot box burning took place in Lagos, Oyo, but they were very few. From all indications, results are now being collected and have already transacted the ward level, some to the local government, up to the state level, and the latest report was that as at yesterday, Ekiti has completed collation and we're heading to the National Collating Center in Abuja with the presidential result. In Kwara State, Senate President Dr. Bukola Saraki will not return to the 9th Senate. This followed scoring lower votes in 4 local government areas of the Kwara Central. Returning officer Professor Olatubosu Oyemi of University of Ilorin declared that Dr. Bukola Saraki scored 68,994 votes as compared to Dr. Ibrahim Oloriegbe, who scored 123,808 votes. Speaker Yakubu Dogara has been declared winner of the Das Tafa Balewa Bogoro Federal Constituency. Yakubu Dogara polled 73,609 votes to beat Abubakar Kantana of APC, who scored 50,075 votes. In Ekiti, the 3 senatorial results have been declared. For the Ekiti Central, Professor Jeremiah Omotola declared that Okpeyemi Bamidele scored 94,279, and Obafemi, he's of the APC, while Obafemi Adewale of the PDP scored 48,707. 2 other results were also released for Ekiti South. Professor Laide Lawal, the returning officer, announced that Dayo Adeyeye of APC scored 77,621, while Senator Biodun Olujimi will not be returning to the Senate of the PDP, scored 53,741. Ekiti North was also declared by Professor Sunday Abayomi, and it was Olubunmi Adetumbi, who scored 60,689 to link that of the Ekiti North. He beat Senator Duro Fasi, who scored 49,209.
Yeah, there are other results, obviously, from Enugu.
But these are the ones that are confirmed.
Yeah, from Enugu, from Abia, and elsewhere, from part of Anambra, and I'm sure when those results are officially released, we will get to see them. Let me just...
We've seen some kind of upsets from the results by your announced so far, both at the House and at the Senate. Some, of course, principal members, may not be, returning.
The Senate President.
The Senate President, Olujimi as well.
Yes, Olujimi, minority leader in the Senate. I mean, but Bukola Saraki was 2-term governor of Kwara.
Yes.
And also he has spent 2 terms, at least, or 2 or 3 terms in the Senate.
It was his second term.
Second term. It's concluded the second term. So, and it's already on the pension of the Kwara State government as a governor, even though he's not collecting his pension. So, maybe he has other things to do. But of course, there will be other results that will come.
The issue that should be of concern to us are claims and counterclaims. The Vanguard reports that the People's Democratic Party, Kola Ologbondiyan, is saying that he is claiming INEC was delaying releasing results when collation was still ongoing at the wards and the state level. The procedure is that for the presidential, all the returning officers from the states must come to the National Coalition Center, and the results will be recorded one after the other. The All Progressive Congress Presidential Campaign Council is also calling for the arrest of Buba Galadima, claiming that the PDP is planning to announce fake results and also instigate some protesters in Abuja.
Well, I expected. I mean, the claims and counterclaims.
Yeah, there. What I found most amusing, well, it's always with us in each election cycle.
Yes.
Obviously, because there is a dearth of stories in the course of the election, you find media houses struggling to publish results from polling units that have been declared. Say Kingsley loses polling unit, Bayo loses his polling unit, Claire loses her polling unit.
Claire won.
And then at the ward level, Kingsley wins his ward, Claire wins her ward, the other one wins her ward. You have 120,000 polling units. So
let's quickly take
my sympathy is with the editors.
I understand.
You have a situation whereby there is dry news.
Yes,
you can't announce results until INEC announces it. And the only thing available for them legally is polling results, which are posted in public domain. So
But I agree, but you know, the sensationalism inherent in it. To say, I mean, look, I'll give you an example. I think Ambode lost his polling unit in Ekpe in Lagos. He lost his polling unit, but eventually APC won the local government. You know, I think it was local government of the world that eventually that they won. You know, as we saw the results coming out from Aso Villa, so that the one said that one person voted in his polling unit, he did. You know.
Kisle, let's quickly run through the ones we have.
Yeah, I just take the Punch. The Punch is very busy. Very quickly, Punch. We just skipped some of those stories relating to the election. 36.8 million bank accounts linked to BVN. That's above the nameplate of the Punch newspaper. 4 core members missing in Akwa Ibom, 14 freed. And then you also have stories there. INEC used photocopies of ballot papers in Imo. That's a claim by NBA. The lead story, of course, is on the stories that we have read earlier. Plus, a story that woman stabs cleric to death. Woman stabs to death cleric who attempted to rape her. That's on pages 4 and 5 of the paper.
All right, the ones I have very rhythmic, that's the casting of the stories on the front page of Leadership. I'll just take the riders to the headline there. It says, Atiku leads in Abuja, Saraki loses bid. Dugara retains seat, Ojikalu wins Senate bid. APC wins 3 Senate seats in Ekiti, Suswan Moro win Benue Senate seats. Akume struggling, Atiku wins T vote, Buhari wins Idoma vote. Melaye defeats Adeyemi. Let's quickly take the editorials.
Before we go to the can I quickly clear this? The resident electoral commissioner, Mike Igini in Cross River, said 18 NYC members, Akwa Ibom, 18 NYC members working as Agdosal were abducted. And he says that 10 were abducted from Abak, 4 from Itu, and 4 others from Ikono local government. However, the spokesman for the police in Akwa Ibom said they don't have any information of that. A spokesman is Mr. Odiko McDonald. He says there were no such reports. However, the resident electoral commissioner says some security men came to the rescue and rescued some of the abducted NYC couple. I thought we should put that in perspective.
All right, let's quickly take a look at a very serious matter now. That's the editorial from the New Telegraph, and it's on Stop Cancer Now. And according to this editorial, the World Health Organization, WHO, has revealed that cancer killed a total of 41,000 Nigerians in 2018. Now, it says this was from an estimated 166,000 cases recorded in the country. Now, there are over 100 types of cancer, of course, and the common being breast cancer, lung cancer, prostate cancer, leukemia, ovarian cancer, skin cancer, cervical cancer, brain cancer, bladder cancer, and of course, so many. But the concern of this editorial is, of course, the continued rise, in the scourge. And if government, of course, at all levels, now, by your notes, government at all levels, do not take drastic and stringent measures to address the key drivers of cancer, the rate might increase.
Yes. Actually, the editorial is saying that the causes of cancer are related with our lifestyle. And what the alarm they are raising is that in Nigeria alone, in the year 2018, we lost as many as 41,000 deaths, and there were 168,000 reported cases. This is on the accidency. But however, cancer, when detected early, can be treated. But sadly, in Nigeria, the editorial is saying that cancer cases report to the hospital when it is too late, eventually when they are already bad cases. And the editorial is happening on the fact that there is need for a tremendous cancer awareness campaign so that patients will be aware of it. And also, there must be initiative to improve by way of equipping centers that have been designated for specific categories of cancer around our university teaching hospitals around the country. If you are going to the airport, there is a National Cancer Center on the right towards the airport immediately before you reach Lube Village. It's been there since the era of the administration of President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, may Allah rest his soul. But there was a national launch, a lot of money was gathered, the structure has been built, What is holding it? It's a national asset that should not be allowed to lay waste.
But two things the paper is also calling for.
Yes.
One, a declaration of national emergency on cancer. And of course, saying that early detection is key to prevention.
Yes.
Yes. So these are the messages. And Kingsley, if you don't have any more...
nothing else to add. Bayo, thank you for being with us. I'm sure all eyes will, from 11 o'clock, be on National Collation Center. And just to explain, Ekiti State has the least number of PVCs collected for this election, followed by Bayelsa.
Yes.
So
the population for the registered voters, Ekiti has 666,581.
Collected PVCs.
Yes.
That's the number.
Yes.
So they have the list, and the terrain is not as cumbersome or treacherous as elsewhere in the country. Bayo, thanks a lot for being with us. See you tomorrow. Okay, it's Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a short break now. When we return, of course, we'll be engaging in analysis of the elections that took place over the weekend.
Bayelsa terrain is very horrible.
That's what I said. That's why Bayelsa is followed by...
Nothing satisfies a mother more than seeing a child grow up. But I know as he sweats, he'll face the risk of germs which can cause skin irritation.
That's why you need the new best ever Dettol Cool. Its new advanced formulation with extra menthol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs and gives your family icy cool freshness.
Growing up needs Dettol protection.
A new edition of TV Guide is out with special focus on the role of the media in election coverage. Exclusive on the National Broadcasting Commission, its mandate as the sole regulator of Nigerian media. Dr. Toba Daba then and Ishat Modibo Kawu now. This edition also features the king of stand-up comedy in Nigeria, Ali Baba. NTA standards to be ready for election transmission after decades of abandonment. Find out from the DG transactional elections in our political space. An evil wind that blows no good. DG, National Orientation Agency Corporate. TV Guide, your indispensable companion, x-rays the impact of social media on electioneering process as electorates present their expectations from incoming government. Meet some TV professionals behind the screen and other inspiring stories in sports, entertainment, and lots more. Grab a copy at the vendor near you or NTA stations nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
Mars Medical Mission, MMM, is offering free services on a wide range of medical issues. Take advantage of these offers, especially by availing yourself of the National Cancer Prevention Program, NCPP. You can do so by coming for our Wellness Wednesday program at 31 Bode Thomas Street, Surulere, Lagos, every Wednesday from 7 a.m. You also have the opportunity of seeing the specialist and getting expert opinion on any health issues that may have been bothering you. Are you preparing to get married to your sweetheart? Then we have a pre-marital health program that will help you ensure that you start your married life on a healthy footing. Very important health screening and counseling will be made available for you and your partner. You can avail yourself of this opportunity by attending our pre-wedding Wednesday program from 7 a.m. For inquiries, send a mail to info@pinkcruise.org or log on to www.pinkcruise.org or call 0805-633-4288. Mission Pink Cruise, taking wellness to all.
Your perfect family is under threat by germs. Infectious diseases are now the world's biggest killer of adults and children. These infectious diseases are caused by germs. They are everywhere. An average human being comes in contact with over 1 million germs daily in unclean water, dirty surfaces, in the toilets, on cuts and wounds, on your clothes. Germs can cause deadly diseases like typhoid, diarrhea, flu, and cough. To protect your family from germs, use the power of Dettol's One Cup Flu for surface cleaning in your bathing water, in your laundry water, for first aid to protect your family from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Introducing Dettol Antiseptic Liquid in Sachet for only 40 Naira.
Endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association.
All right, thank you as always, and thank you for joining us. And good morning, Nigeria. Our discussion begins right now. Of course, we know it's post-2019 election analysis. But let's take the first things first from the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, of course, who briefed and gave us highlights of the conduct of the election.
Through the deployment of 8,809 area registration area technical support, or RATEX, that we engaged as ad hoc staff, many of these glitches were successfully rectified, which enabled voting to take place seamlessly in some of the affected polling units. Yet, there were places where voting could not proceed as a result of the failure of the smart card readers. In addition, there are places where materials arrive late for voting to proceed. After consultation with the communities involved and in line with our regulations and guidelines, new smart card readers have been reconfigured and deployed for elections in the affected polling units. We are determined that the vote of every Nigerian is important and must count. We have received preliminary reports and are closely monitoring the situation in Rivers, particularly Oni and Okokuturu local government areas. We are similarly awaiting the detailed report. We are also aware of the incidents in some parts of Lagos, particularly Okota. We are similarly aware of the incidents of intimidation, abduction, hostage taking, and violence unleashed on election officials in some states, notably Akwa Ibom, and the burning down of a vehicle conveying materials used for the election yesterday in the Kina local government area of Kogi State. Some youth corps members serving as ad hoc staff were also attacked in Osun State. While in all these attacks, election staff sustained injuries, we have unfortunately recorded the first fatality in Rivers State. An ad hoc staff, Mrs. Ibisaki Amakri, was hit by a bullet while returning from election duty in Degema. May her soul rest in peace. We condemn these attacks and will forward a comprehensive report to the security agencies for expeditious investigation and prosecution of those involved. We have also received reports of voters who presented genuine PVCs, read by the smart card readers, but were not allowed to vote because their names were not on the register of voters. We have been confronted by such a situation in one of the off-season elections conducted by the Commission. For this reason, we made a clear provision in our draft guidelines and regulations to allow such voters to vote. However, when the draft was discussed with stakeholders, the clause was rejected on the ground that it would encourage voting by identity theft. We had to drop it, and for that reason, it was dropped. For our part, all election duty personnel have sworn an oath of neutrality. We have reports of possible dereliction of duty by some electoral officials in refusing to activate or deploy the smart card readers, the failure to fully account for materials collected for the election, absconding from duty.
All right, that was the INEC chairman there giving an overview of the conduct of the elections at the weekend. Of course, there will be many more reports coming out from him at the ICC when they reconvened this morning at the National Coalition Center for the presidential election results. But we'll have guests with us in the studios here, and we'll also be joining our correspondents at various network centers to get some more insight into what transpired at that weekend, and then, of course, what to expect. First, let's welcome Aliyu Bello, who is Deputy Director of Voter Education and Publicity of the Independent National Electoral Commission. Aliyu Bello, pleasure to have you again with us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Also here is another familiar face on Good Morning Nigeria, Esther Uzoma, a lawyer and civil society activist and Deputy Chair of the Civil Society Situation Room. Pleasure to have you with us.
Good morning.
Okay.
And let me also bring in Force Public Relations Officer Frank Mba. He has been on his feet since returning for the second time as Force Public Relations Officer. Thank you, Frank, for joining us.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure being here.
And from Port Harcourt, I'm sure, okay, we don't have Port Harcourt now, so Kingsley, let's get on with it.
All right, but just before we bring in our guests, let's have an overview again from our correspondents as to what they encountered in the course of the elections of the weekend. From Ibadan, we are being joined by our correspondent, Fatai Adeoloja. Adeoloja, let's have your take on what went on in and around your location of the weekend.
Thank you. Welcome to Ibadan. Of course, going to Shaki, it was like, oh, that's a rather volatile area. How are you going to cope? But all through, everywhere we did go, it was peaceful. Of course, we were at polling unit 1720, Surulere area, where the Honorable Minister for Communication did exercise his franchise. There and then, he told the people that they must live by example. When they insisted, as a primus inter pares, he must cast his vote without having to queue. It was on the queue, showing leadership by example. General Togun was also there, and of course, that was also the story. One very interesting aspect of voting in Okeogun is the fact that the aged were not left out. There was this case of Baba Musa, who is about 109, going to 110. He was assisted to the polling unit, and he remained undaunted. There were cases of physically challenged who were also not been left out. In fact, so interesting is the fact that when they got to one polling unit, they were told their names were not on the list. They had to keep moving until they eventually were able to do the needful. We move on to Aguare. Also in Aguare, the conduct of the people was very peaceful. There were no incidences of failure or malfunctioning card reader. The electoral umpire, the officials were there right on time, and the people conducted themselves peacefully. Later, at his saying, all through everywhere we did go, it was a case of we have made a resolve, no fighting. All we're here to do is to perform our civic duties. Of course, right there and then after the voting, the conduct of the people when the votes were being sorted out, when the votes were being counted, is also what we all should learn to key into. There were no incidences of ballot snatching. There were no incidences of bickerings or fighting. All of the people around that area conducted themselves peacefully. Of course, the stories from Shekpetere is not different, and that is to say our people are ready this time around to conduct themselves peacefully to ensure that we have a globally acceptable election 2019. Results are still being awaited, and any moment from now, we will be feeding you with details of how the results did go, not only from Okeogun, but from Oyo State. Of course, Oyo State, we all know, is a pace-setter state. We will not be found wanting as far as this election 2019 is concerned. So it's back to you in Abuja to let's have how it did go in other parts of the country. Thank you.
You're not going away yet. You talked about, you referenced Shaki the other, when you started. We'd like to know what specifically, happened in terms of conduct and, of course, in terms of the turnout of, voters there. And you've been covering elections for as long as I can't remember. What can you tell us about value addition? What would you say are the new things or the new value that have been added to this election that we haven't seen or we didn't see in the previous ones?
Well, as I did say earlier, the conduct was generally peaceful. Of course, the value added is that of the use of the smart card and that the people were able to adjust, even the aged, to be able to also ensure that they also key into the new innovation. That was, one remarkable thing. Of course, the turnout was impressive. In most places we did go. The thinking in some quarters was that there was going to be violence, and we all know that Shaki area, most of the time when you go in there, people will tell you you have to be extra careful. But the people were careful. They conducted themselves peacefully, responsibly. These are the new things, because right there, if you're going to Shaki, it is always apprehension, trepidation. But this time around, all through in all those areas, in Okyogun, generally, it was unusually peaceful.
All right, Fatai, why does Shaki have the kind of reputation that you have sketched a moment ago?
Well, one wouldn't know. Most of the time, they complain of marginalization. In fact, some will say the roads are bad. Is there any aspect of, government intervention here? But I guess the stories are changing, the narratives are changing. For once, they're having a dualized road. The entry to the town is being dualized, and of course, it's being tarred. Some of the things that they are clamoring for are beginning to happen. Of course, a number of them raised an issue. We were almost mobbed when we were about shooting. What are you doing here? Is NTA working? Why are you going to use it? I said, we're going beyond the local. We're beaming this one on the network service. And of course, I'm going to take this up with the communication minister. We had told him several times that there is need for Shaki to be in public consciousness, locally, nationally, and globally. And of course, we did make a case for the resuscitation of the station. This is to say that the people are beginning to feel the impact of government, even if it is tokenistically. And of course, when this is done, I'm afraid the tension will reduce on the part of the people. They want more of government intervention. They want to feel a part of the Nigerian society. And the only way this can happen is for them to have huge government presence.
All right, Fatai Adeoloja, thank you very much for your contribution. If we have the time in the course of the program, we'll probably return to you, but there are other colleagues of yours to whom we shall be going to also get their reports with regard to what transpired in their areas of coverage. Once again, Fatai, thank you very much from our NTA Ibadan Network Center. Now, back to our Abuja studios, we have all the guests that we have introduced. We have also with us in the studios here one of our correspondents, Ignatius Unkwo. Ignatius Unkwo was out on the weekend. Normally his beat is the National Assembly. Ignatius, pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you. Good morning.
Okay, well, let's begin with the INEC Deputy Director of Voter Education and Publicity, Aliu Bello. We had you here on the eve of voting last week. What is INEC's assessment so far, in addition to what the INEC chairman has said, of the conduct of the elections countrywide?
Thank you for that beautiful question. I would like to say, let me begin by saying the sincerity of purpose, the openness and transparency count of the Commission on all stages of the process is good enough to be appreciated for Nigerians over all of the activities that happened. But going forward, I think it is early for the Commission to begin to have an assessment, even as generally the election went peacefully and the polls have been conducted and everything went well. Of course, there were some isolated cases of challenges here and there, but generally the elections that happened on Saturday and finally concluded on Sunday in some places where polls did not happen on Saturday, I think was a good record that 2019 elections is so far so good, successfully conducted. However, like I said, it's early enough to begin to give an assessment because this is just one of the two exercises the Commission will have to take for the year. And in the next 2 weeks, we will have another election for the governorship and state assembly candidates.
Indeed, we must, we know it's the first, of others that are coming, but we also need to, evaluate how far we have come. But I'd like to ask you about those abducted. One of the papers we reviewed this morning gave a figure of about 18 core members abducted in one of the South states, and while others, of course, lost their lives. And I'm wondering how INEC is handling or going to handle matters like that.
Well, it's quite unfortunate at this stage we keep having such experiences. It is a sad one. And the commission, the report coming to commission indicates that a youth copper even paid the supreme sacrifice, and it wasn't part of the things that the exercise would have cost Nigerians. However, I want to believe that going forward still, the law enforcement agents in the areas where these things are happening have beefed up security to ensure the safety of lives and property of every one person or stakeholder that is involved in the process.
Usually, in covering elections in violent-prone areas, those ad hoc staff to be deployed to those areas are given, special training on how to go about their duties. Was this part of, your training package for your ad hoc staff?
Well, the security of life and property is of paramount of importance to everyone. And I believe no matter how hard you try to train officials of commission to conduct polls, in such difficult terrain, difficult areas where some security challenges happen, is not about not having to train them the way they should, but also certain things beyond them happened. And if such happened, I think the security architecture involved in the conduct of the exercise was good enough, but still you can never rule out chances of having one or two one-off things that can cause life, and it's quite sad, unfortunate, and the process would going forward develop some internal mechanisms to even anticipate and project chances of having to deal with such situations. I believe the law enforcement agents, we have Frank over on the platform, he will say more about that.
Well, Aliu Bello, once again, thank you very much. And the general impression is that the elections went on well. The several incidents, ugly in nature, notwithstanding. But there were a number of things, though, that recurred, with which we are now becoming accustomed with regard to our elections. One, you still had logistic challenges. Some of your electoral officers arrived late. Some of them had incomplete materials or ballot papers not being available. And more importantly, you had said last week, and indeed other INEC officials had been saying, the card readers had been perfected. We had a number of high-profile persons, who couldn't whose identity couldn't be authenticated by the card reader on account of a malfunction. How do you explain all of this?
Well, card reader is a device, can fail you even on the day of the exercise. You never can say anything about that. But left to the commission, all efforts need to be done, has been done to ensure that these card readers functioned and we did not experience any failure. But like I said, no matter how hard you try to plan or organize yourselves, if the device fails you, what you could only do, which was done by Commission, is to ensure that some backup measures were adopted and to ensure quick replacement. And the procedure provides that where card reader malfunctioned or did not pick up to the close of exercise, such places would have the election the next day. And that is what happened. That was why we had another elections in some isolated places on Sunday. It wasn't like the Commission did not foresee failures, but if failures of the card reader are something to be managed within the day of election, that was the first day, that was Saturday, it has been managed. But if on account of card reader failure, the election did not happen on Saturday, then obviously it was taken yesterday, that was Sunday, and we now have a record of having conducted elections in all of the units involved in the exercise.
Well, Aliu Bello, I mean, of course, we are having to engage you more because we'll let you go shortly to join your colleagues in preparation for more work at the National Collation Center at the ICC. Was INEC overwhelmed by the turnout, particularly at most of the polling stations in urban areas? I mean, there saw some visuals from Mararaba, Yanyan area, you know, when the gates were flung open, and it was like, I don't know, I mean, I hadn't seen such a sea of heads. And that's where, of course, voting extended well beyond 2 o'clock, either because of the late startup or because those persons were already available, and then the process was just going slowly. Was INEC overwhelmed in any way?
There wasn't an issue of being overwhelmed by the turnout of voters, because even as at the time the Commission was planning, was anticipating people to turn about 84 million citizens that have registered. If all of them turn out to vote, cannot be overwhelming, because that was the benchmark anyway, that the maximum number of registered voters is 84 million plus a few more. But when turnout happens, the Commission put in place some measures. That is the reason for creating, for the creation of voting points to accommodate the large turnout. In all places, all units where you have over 1,000 registered voters, you find that Commission created voting points. That means additional personnel, additional card reader were provided in those places to actually attend to voters as they come. And one most important thing also is, since the exercise permits persons to turn up, get accredited and vote and go, it would have even reduced the crowd we found. But you find that even after voting, because there was the Commission even allowed that if you are interested, you could still wait. So that waiting alone added to the number of persons around the crowd. Anyway, we're not complaining about that, but we want to say precisely that the exercise went well, and I'm sure no matter the length of queues at the polling units, all of those that queued up have voted. That's the most important thing, and their votes will surely count.
Well, Aliu Bello, again, still with you. I had asked you the question last Friday: who has a right of access and therefore attendance at the collation center? And of course, you ticked off those who have a right of access. But I'm sure you have also heard reports of some ugly occurrences at the collation centers, and various reports claiming that, oh, well, the voters have voted, but the results might be tampered with. Is this possible? And how then do you keep away persons who have no right to be at the collation center, whether at the ward level, local government level, or at the state level?
Well, going by the procedure, I don't see that happening, because the collation center procedure permits only the collation officers and those turning up results from fields and accredited officials, party agents, observer groups, and media. These are specific stakeholders identified and accredited to be at the collation center. And when results are announced at PU level, we expect that it's even beyond expectation. It is like the order that the presiding officer of that polling unit should have signed off on the results sheets, issue to party agents copies, make another copy in a form we call from EC60E, and paste it before even presenting it to the ward collation officer. At the collation center at ward level or RA level, you will have all of these officials present there to ensure that what happened at PU level is what is presented. And that is how the procedure begins from the lower to the highest level of collation at National International Conference Center here in Abuja. And yesterday at 6 p.m., the Honorable Chair of Commission, INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, actually commissioned the center, opened the center, for collation of presidential election results. And we have on record that few states have started coming. This morning at 11 a.m., we will start receiving the results from the states.
All right, Aliyu, I know we will let you go in a jiffy, but let's bring Frank here. I talked about, the issue of safety. And I'm wondering, usually when, journalists are embedded in a coverage, especially where it has to do with violence-prone areas, they are given some sort of training, to be safe. In terms of content of the training given to these ad hoc staff, what was the level of the police or security, agencies? And do you think that that might be a factor to consider, in other elections?
Well, first of all, let me say, election processes in Nigeria have always been a learning process for all the strategic key holders, whether it's for INEC, whether it's for the law enforcement agencies, and even for the citizens and political actors, the CSOs and the rest of us who are involved directly or indirectly in helping the process. And so for me, at the end of every election, we must look at how we fared. What are the things we did right? What are the areas we didn't do well? And what are the areas we need improvement? I really don't know the context of the training for these ad hoc staff because they are not police personnel. But it wouldn't be a bad idea if going forward we could incorporate what we could call, probably in their syllabus, something like survival strategies in electioneering fields. And then we can bring people from the police department or from other law enforcement agencies and then give them these trainings. There are a whole lot of trainings we can give. We can look at how to analyze, how to appreciate risk, how to deal with risk, how to communicate strongly. There are communications that are even deterrent on their own. How to even deal with situations, for example, where the police have to use tear gas. What do you do if you're an INEC staff and there are unruly crowd outside and the police are using tear gas, and then for one reason or the other you have to inhale it? What are you supposed to do? So we can become part of the training process for INEC and their ad hoc staff. But these are all things we can look at going forward. But I think so far so good. INEC have done reasonably well. Some of the people who have criticized INEC, I tell them, take your time and organize your 20th birthday party or your 40th birthday party or your 50th birthday party and see how things can easily go wrong. You might have done everything, got your cake, got your power system fixed in place, your music system fixed in place, your guests, everybody's around the corner, and suddenly the electrical system in your hall just goes bad and everybody is sweating and struggling. It could be power system. The power holding just goes off with their light and you think you have one brand new generator that is on standby and you rush to touch the generator and you discover that the generator is not just working, or you have ordered your cake from one of the best cake makers in the country and then you place it on the table and you are just trying to raise up your knife and the cake begins to crumble. Something can just go wrong. And so, not to talk of a huge election like this with this kind of huge logistics, I don't see any way, I don't think there is any event in Nigeria that could have the kind of logistics arrangement as huge, except we are probably going out for a civil war. If we don't have a warfare, I've never seen any other exercise that will involve multiple stakeholders at different levels, locally, internationally, security agencies, government officials, media people, is a huge thing. And so we must take that into consideration before we begin to crucify INEC.
Well, ACP, I don't think INEC is being crucified. I mean, the general assessment is that the elections went well. That's the general assessment. I mean, you had pockets of ugly incidents, no doubt about that, but not those pockets of ugly incidents, and then learn also how to address them. But in general, I mean, look at Lagos, for instance. I'm sure the guests will speak to that. Lagos, the only ugly incident that was widely reported had to do with what happened at Agor Palace Way in Okota.
Which we will address.
Elsewhere in Lagos, that's megalopolis with the highest voting population in the country, things seem to have gone on well. So, but let's sign
off, Aliu.
No. Well, Aliu still has a minute or two, he says, to spare with us. But Esther Uzoma, what's your take on the conduct of the elections?
Well, so far so good. We started on a clumsy note, but we are moving forward. The commission itself acknowledged polls didn't start on time, but then it started. However, the most striking aspect of it for me was the internal sabotage by officers of the commission. The chairman flagged it. In fact, in some areas in the southeast, officials had to be picked up. Some derelicated their dereliction of duty. Some just didn't even show up at all, even though they had materials. You see, some were it was after one was arrested, then the others, So, yes, he said it, and then that's also conforms with the reports we have. And then you ask yourself, we live in a country where people deliberately, systematically set out just to subvert the system. It is worrisome. And then, what you also mentioned about Okota, citizens they also have their own agenda. One thing, that came out very strongly is the resolve of the Nigerian citizens to participate in the electoral process. It is a validation of the institution of INEC. People believe truly that their vote, there's power in their PVCs. So we saw them, they came out early, 7 a.m., in some places 6:30. They queued up. Nobody compelled them to be orderly. They queued up, wrote their names. They had their snacks. They had their water. They brought their chairs.
And their
mats.
There was this woman.
Yes, in Enugu. And they were patient. So that's a strong kudos. People believe, God, these are not the days. Remember, there was a time, people will still be in the polls. Elections results will be announced. Those days are gone. So there's a strong faith, in INEC. There's a strong faith that, there's power in the PVC. I think I can say for sure that the democracy has come to stay. The faith of the people in the system has been, reinforced. People are resolved to let's vote, let's get it right. Okay? So that is on one hand. And then for the people who are deliberately, I think, do I blame it on the influence of the political class? Always trying to subvert. You will say, nobody should come in here with water. Some people will come in with ice blocks. You say, don't bring a stick here. Some people will walk in with sugar cane. That long, menacing sugar cane. Yes, the dynamism of always trying to beat the system, points one picture. The weakness of our criminal justice system. Because people do these things with impunity. Nothing will happen. Nothing will happen.
Well, I doubt if that will be the case, if it will be business as usual, because, of course, we've seen the determination of the police and INEC to, of course, investigate bring them to book. Let me quickly say that our guest in the Port Harcourt Center, Festus Oguche, of course, we probably will not see him on screen now, but he's seated right there. We will come over to you, Mr. Guche, if you can hear us. He's a lawyer and civil rights activist. But let's go to Maiduguri right now, where we have our correspondent, Mohammed Ibrahim. Mohammed, good to see you. What can you tell us also about the conduct of the elections in Maiduguri?
Thank you for joining us in Maiduguri. The conduct of the last Saturday's election was held under 3 categories as arranged by INEC in collaboration with stakeholders. The 3 categories of elections, of voting, was held in 2015, were in safe local government areas, relatively safe local government areas, and inaccessible areas, which had to hold their elections in IDP camps in the relatively safe areas. And elections were held in Maiduguri, the state capital, Jere, Biu, Haul, Kwayakusar, Bayo, Chibok, Shani, and Askira Uba, which are the safe areas. So voters came out and voted in those areas up to ward level. Then in the relatively safe areas, which include Bama, Dikwa, Damboa, Goza, Gubio, Kaga, Kalabalge, Konduga, Kukawa, as well as Mafa, including Magumeri, Monguno, Mobar, including and also Ngala. The voters voted in the local government headquarters due to the security challenges. And 3 inaccessible areas which could not hold elections in the local government headquarters were moved to the relatively safe areas. They include Abadam, Guzamala, and Marte. Borno State had a total voters register of 2,315,956, and the polling units were 3,933, with voting points, additional voting points of 5,071. The Coalition Center for the senatorial zones for Borno North, we have the Coalition Center is INEC office in Monguno Town, and the Coalition Center for Borno Central is INEC office in Maiduguri, the state capital. Also, the Coalition Center for Borno South is in Biu office. Coalition, actually the mood, if I would take it from there, of voting across the state, in one of our interviews with the resident electoral commissioner INEC Borno State, Mohamed Magaji Ibrahim, said they had no reports whatsoever of any breach of security. And it was generally the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security gave the election a pass mark because they said the turnout of voters, especially IDPs, was very impressive. So far, the coalition for the senatorial zones, no result has been announced for the Senate and House of Representatives. And for the presidential, Coalition Center is at the Kashmir Ibrahim College of Education, Maiduguri. The presidential coalition officer, Professor Samin Abdurrahman Ibrahim, is on ground, which they commenced work yesterday under the supervision of the resident electoral commissioner, INEC Borno State. So far, results have been received for 12 local government areas. In the afternoon of yesterday, we had results from 7 local government areas. And the 7 local government areas are Nganzai, Magumeri, Mobar, Dikwa, Gubio, Abadam, as well as Guzamala. Late last night, that Sunday, 5 additional local government areas came in. They are Mafa, Marte, Kalabalge, Kaga, and Kukawa. So that is how far it has been, and we're expecting more results to come in for the Presidential Coalition Center, resuming 10 a.m. today.
Ibrahim, thank you very much. You joined us from our Maiduguri Network Center. Thank you very much. Yeah, we understand our Port Harcourt studio is ready, but before we go over to Festus Oguche in Port Harcourt, let us thank Aliu Bello, Deputy Director of Voter Education and Publicity of INEC. Of course, we engaged him excessively at the commencement of this conversation, and he has to be away now to join his colleagues for other very urgent official assignments. Aliu Bello, thank you for being with us on the program. We hope you'll be with us sometime going forward.
Thank you very much indeed.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's go over now to our Port Harcourt Network Center. Festus Oguche, lawyer, civil rights activist, is there in our Port Harcourt studios. Mr. Oguche, good to see you after a long while. But we had all kinds of reports as to what went on in Rivers. Rivers was always flagged red in the course of these elections, and apparently, but sadly, we didn't disappoint. What are your thoughts on what went on in Rivers?
Much Kingsley, thanks for inviting me. It's rather unfortunate. Scenario is beginning to be a sort of tradition here in Rivers State that elections are usually viewed with serious fear and trepidation rather than a situation where people will be very happy that at least an opportunity has come for them to express themselves, express their franchise. Of the violence, I think election generally, from what I perceive, has been very commendable in the sense of the credibility of the process, the integrity of the ballots, and the sanctity of the polls. But then here in Rivers State, it hasn't been quite easy. There's been killings, there's been abductions. It has become a very serious tradition, and it shows that the authorities have not been able to tackle this thing headlong because the solutions are always there. The boys are not in short supply here, and they are not even in short supply anywhere because the jobs are not there, and they want to get engaged with something, even if it is a vice, to keep their head. But I think the crux of the matter is to engage the relevant security sector reforms and security sector governance to ensure that the people that arm the boys are apprehended. They are mostly the political actors who get immunity at the end of the day when they get into political office. Some of them are what have you. So it becomes a vicious cycle that this tradition of mayhem, bedlam, and violence cannot stop in Rivers State because the persons who are buying the guns, the persons who are giving the guys the impetus to take those actions are not being apprehended, they're not being taken care of. And there's not much prosecution anyway for electoral offenses.
Well, still with you, Mr. Festus Oguche. I mean, you prefaced your comments by saying that the integrity of the process was enhanced. Now, to what extent, if any, did the violent misconduct of some of these elements we just described a while ago impact on the turnout and the general conduct of the elections in Rivers?
I would say it affected the conduct in a large percentage. The vices, the violence were in selected areas, Akoko Toru, Bonny, and maybe some Beaton or Krika area, but it didn't have much effect. It didn't have any infectious bandwagon effects on the rest of the areas, and I guess that the conduct had been very well. On election day, I was virtually on the streets, moving from one unit to the other. The turnout was very impressive, quite impressive. There's been some bit of enhanced public awareness, voter education campaign by INEC, for instance. I think it was a little more vigorous in recent years than it used to be. The level of awareness of the people had heightened very, very much. And the political society as it is, people are ready to as a system of government that they want. But though there are still rooms for improvement here and there, the electoral reforms that are very, very imperative to the guarantee that elections will be free, fair, credible anywhere. The reforms go on everywhere, even in advanced democracies. But in terms of percentage, the violence, the killings and whatever areas, in pocket areas, they are not, they don't have any, I don't think they have very much impact in the general conduct of elections here in Rivers State.
Right, Mr. Guche, you mentioned Okrika, Asaritoru, and Akukutoru. These are traditionally, like Kingsley said, red areas during elections. Now, what did you decipher, on the causes or reasons, for the recent violence that occurred in those areas?
Investigations are still going on. The one for Akukutoru, I think it has to do with the activities of the soldiers and on this platform sometime yesterday in the course of these elections that soldiers have no place in the conduct of elections anywhere in the world. There are about 5 judgments of the court. There's a Supreme Court's pronouncement to that effect in 2015. There's a Court of Appeal pronouncement to that effect. There's the Federal High Court in Lorin, the Federal High Court Sokoto pronouncement. These are subsisting judgments. I don't think the police lacks the capacity to manage security during the conduct of elections. But then prior to that, the governor of Rivers State had made some comments about threats to his life, and did mention some soldiers involved. And I was beginning to wonder, when have we lost out by the rule of law, the due process of the law? If there are judgments to that effect, then I don't think soldiers should be directly involved in the conduct of elections. But aside that, I think the desperation of the political elite here, especially here in Rivers State, is a little on the high side. It's a winner takes it all syndrome. There's been the win at the end of the day, and it has become a matter of life and death that they remain in office, or they bulldoze their way into office, either by hook or by crook. Whichever way it goes, it doesn't matter to them. The desperation is something that has to be taken care of, because it appears that politics longer an opportunity for selfless service. It's now become the easy way to make wealth, to fame, to fortune, and to power. But the reverse example is not quite encouraging, though, because it has become a recurring decimal, and it's something that bull has to be taken by the horns by the authorities to ensure that Rivers people do not look at elections with apprehension and fear.
Mr. Oguche, but still let's take more advantage of you, since we have a clear line to our Port Harcourt studios. How does an outsider understand what's played out in Rivers against this background? Assume, and indeed that will be the case, that there are 2 dominant political parties in Rivers, the PDP and then the APC. And you had a legal decision that said that one of the parties, in this case the APC, would not participate in all the elections. So where did the conflict then come from, that if one party had already been judicially excluded from the elections, was it the dominant party now, or the only party that was now dominant plus all other small ones that were now trying to delete each other or one another?
It all boils down to the scenario we have, which has become part of our political character, that if you are not on my side, I'll do everything to crush you. At the end, I may not have any stake in what is going on. The judgment of the Supreme Court, the judgment of the court, the Federal High Court, the Court of Appeal is very clear to that effect, though that I find it quite unpalatable, because the essence of elections is inclusiveness, participation. And I don't think that it panders very well with the Accra Declaration on the Principles of Electoral Justice to exclude people. But then the crux of the matter is that it will be rather surprising that these mayhem are still going on, because they are, one of them is out. The smaller parties are not making much, pulling much weight here, and I'm very sure they will not want to engage themselves in these vices, because at the end of the day it boils down to nothing. But the truth is that politics is viewed as a, how do I put it? Or rather, let me put it another way, that politics here breeds hatred between people, between brothers, between kinsmen, between clansmen, and it's either you are here or you're there. If you're on the other side, you're an enemy. And also, I think it has to do with the general philosophy. People, well, if you're in power, you're there. If you're not there, and it has so much to do with this politics of exclusion, that when people win into office, they forget about the other people, the winner takes it all syndrome, and what have you. Then, at the end of the day, what we are going to see in the course of time is that a whole lot of antagonism has always been like that right from the beginning, in 1999 up till this date. The tradition of violence, the tradition of mayhem, which generates a lot of hatred, and these things, they have their effects, their cycle effects on or later conduct of election that will take place. If you kill my kinsman today, I'll go after your kinsman the next day. There are here and there all over the place. I think that explains why it is like that, in spite of the fact that it's just one sole party that is going for the elections. The other party would want to do everything in its power to frustrate that move, to ensure that they don't get a smooth sail in the polls. Yes.
Thank you. Let's keep you on hold for a moment and bring in our own correspondent, Ignatius Onkwo. Of course, he's the National Assembly correspondent, of course, covering the upper chamber, that's the Senate. He covered the election, of course, in parts of the FCT and some satellite towns here. Ignatius, what were the dominant issues that you witnessed?
Well, just like most of our reports, we filed from those areas. One of the major issues we found out on ground then was the issue of misplacement of names, sometimes from the voter registers. We found out that predominantly from 0 to Z, we found out that some of those names were misplaced. And then when the eligible voters discovered this, you know, the normal way of reacting when they feel they are trying to be disenfranchised, they raise issues. And then when the presiding officer comes in, some of the polling units where we went, they come, and then what they now do, they discover that the names were not actually missing, but they were misplaced. And then in that case, you find out that if in a polling unit, for instance, 003, if a name is not supposed to be where it is, and then you have a card reader, you should be able to know that those names were not configured with those card readers. And so when they discover that those names were not in the same register where they were supposed to be, they now begin to transplant them to where they are supposed to be. And so once they do that, the voter is allowed to vote. And then you find out, for instance, in Kuje, there were some areas where you found out that because some of the materials came in late, and then those things were not discovered on time, and you know what it means, the election would definitely started late, and that's why sometimes you see, that's why there was postponement, and some of the elections took place yesterday. But then, apart from the issue of misplacing voter names from the register, we still have some issues of card readers. Some of the card readers, which that was one particular thing I noticed at the Garki village ward, where you find out that in the polling unit, maybe polling unit 003 was supposed to have card reader tagged with number 004. And I think it's from the INEC of officials who were trying to tag the numbers, because each card reader has a number attached to it on a sellotape. And so maybe instead of writing the number 003, they will have 004. And when they were distributing this into the polling unit, you found out they will now take the one. Of course, you bring it out. What you see on the card reader is what you give to the polling unit. If you see 004, ordinarily you take it to 004. So when they took some of this in there, you found out that when they now come to vote, their name, the card reader could not identify them. That was one of the major issues in Karu, in health center ward, where
that's misplacement of card readers.
This one is tag, wrong tagging. Yes, wrong tagging, exactly. You know, so it's one of the dominant issue we had at the health center ward, where the senator representing the FCT, Senator Philip Aduda, his polling unit. It was one of the big issues. In fact, when we got there at about 7:30 in the morning, we discovered that the eligible voters had already thronged there even by 6 a.m. They were even there before the officials came, and they themselves were even helping them to bring down those materials down. And so when they got them, they wanted to start in one of the units, like one of the units, 003, is about 6 units there. All other units were okay, but about 2 units witnessed that problem. One of them was a network problem. One of them, the card reader could not be accessed because there was network failure, which was eventually rectified. But one of the major ones they had was the one I'm talking about, wrong tagging of card readers. Ordinarily, it's not a big problem. But you know, for someone who is eager to vote, come in and you tell the person it's your name is not being identified by the card reader. For them, it was a very, very big issue.
How promptly the ad hoc staff handled that or addressed the issues?
Yeah, they did, because I think in some of these areas, the presiding officers, they were well trained. Because I know I covered the 2015 election, and I went during that election, there are some polling units you go, and there are one or two issues. I found out that the ad hoc staff will be lost. The needs, in fact, they start calling INEC office, but in most of the places we went, Apollo Resettlement, in Wuse, Jabi, Karu, all the areas we went, for that one or two little issues that comes up, you see them, they would have the confidence, and they will solve it there and then.
There were no phones.
Exactly. There was no phone. There was no phones. So I really believe what I was able to subsume is the fact that the ad hoc staff, they were properly trained.
Well, Ignatius, I recall I had an interaction with you while you were on the field on Saturday on Nigeria Decides, which is NTA's flagship program for the coverage of the 2019 general elections. At that time, you were still in the Yaya Maraba access. Yeah. But exactly what happened? Because there were some visuals that came later about a surge of voters when the gates were flung open. As they said, people arrived, materials or something arrived late. That's one. But what was your impression of the voters? I didn't get reports of violence, or people just were patient, or what?
Okay. I think the issue of where you saw a kind of crowd surge in some of those is one or two pockets of polling units. You know, in the morning when some of these materials were being moved, unfortunately, because of the policy of no movement by that point in time, some of them were stopped by some of the soldiers on the road. But the issue is that once you explain yourself, you show yourself that you are an election official, they allow you to go. But you know, like I told you, in some of these polling units, as early as 5 a.m., these people the eligible voters were already there. They were eager to see the election commence, for them to drop the ballot. So, you know, when they waited, in the end of when these people now come, because unlike before when the electoral officers will come and wait for eligible voters to come, at this point they were already waiting. So when these people come, what they needed to do is to drop their ballot, because they were eager to beat the 2 p.m. as stipulated by INEC. And so that was why you see.
But in terms of, were there reports of violence?
No, there was not.
Everywhere was calm.
In capsule form, the election in the FCT was very calm. In fact, when I was eager to see the report from other states, from states. Right. I was feeling, is it because Abuja could be termed as an elite residence or what? But when I saw the report from other states, I was I was so happy. And then the voter
until later in the day.
So yes, of course we have our correspondent Susan Eze in Enugu. Susan, thank you for joining us. We can't see you on the screen. Okay, we can see you now. What happened in Enugu?
Right, thank you and welcome to Enugu. Yes, on Saturday I covered the elections. I was at Udenu Council area. That's the Soka axis of Enugu State. And my experiences beginning from my base here in the station to Oba in Udenu, I witnessed a lot of things on the way. Yes, the restriction on movement was total. The streets were deserted, apart from people who were trekking to their polling booths. But then as we progressed, I observed that people kept out of the street for different reasons. One would think that they were at the polling booths, but we saw churches holding services that morning. Church programs were going on, so they kept out of the streets, but they were in their churches. And as we progressed, we also saw a football field with footballers playing their game. So these people obeyed the restriction order, but for different reasons. And then, as we progressed, I also noticed that the security agents were very thorough. At every security point, we observed clusters of vehicles apprehended, people who defied the restriction order. Many of them had complaints. Some said their homes were far from where they registered, so they were trying to move fast from their homes to the voting centers, and they were now caught up. Others complained that they registered from their offices, places close to their offices. So on the election day, they will have to move from their homes to the polling booths, and the distance was so far for them. They had many complaints. They were determined to go and vote, but transition from their homes to the polling booth was a problem. Others said they were sick, but they were determined to go and vote. So they said they could not trek. and they had to move with their vehicles. So that got me thinking, the restriction order kind of restricted some people from exercising their franchise, though they were determined to do so. Then, in spite of the fact that our vehicle was a press vehicle and we had our INEC tags with us, the security men were very thorough. They still stopped us at various checkpoints. They searched through our vehicles. When they confirmed that truly we were journalists, they allowed us to move. And getting closer to the first polling booth we entered in Oba, we observed that even the INEC vehicle that was conveying INEC materials was also held up. I don't know for what reason. Maybe they wanted to be sure that the content of that vehicle were INEC materials. And eventually, when they were released, we arrived the polling booth together with those people, and the area was deserted. But as soon as these materials arrived, the villagers started trooping out. And I noticed they were discussing in patches. They had one fear. They were discussing about the heavy security presence in their locality. In the cities, people are used to seeing security men, army, police, civil defense, but in the villages, it's a different ballgame. They felt it was a war situation. Many of them were scared, and even one of the men I interviewed mentioned it, that they've never seen this kind of security presence. Is it just for the elections? And eventually, when the people saw that nothing was happening, it's just for their own security, they now started coming out. And that issue of transition from homes to polling booths wasn't that much of a problem in the villages, probably because the people registered close to their homes. You see them walking out. There was no checkpoints to hold anybody back from coming. Even the state governor, that was his booth, Umube, Ward 1. He trekked from his home to the polling booth and exercised his franchise and quietly walked back home. So other people also did. But one thing that was noticeable was late arrival of materials. We arrived 30 minutes after 8 o'clock, and that was when the team also arrived. And many other booths we went to, the materials also arrived late. But you could see the determination of the people to wait out and exercise their franchise. They sat there. Some came with their seats. Some came with their food. In fact, somewhere in Enugu here in Abakma, there was this woman who came with her aged mother. They came with a mat and pillows and food. The woman said they came with their breakfast, their lunch, and their dinner, that they are determined to wait. The materials came late, but they waited, and eventually they cast their ballot. Another observation I made during that exercise was the beauty of the simultaneous accreditation and voting. Before now, and I have covered elections, when people have to come, do accreditation, and then go home to come back later. But this time around, they did it together. And that frustration of waiting was removed from them, because before now, some people come and do accreditation and then go home. They will never come back. Some will come back and discover that accreditation is still on. And when they sit, they get hungry, they get tired, they get frustrated, and the slightest provocation, they become volatile. But this time around, there was peace all the way, because people had the choice. When they do accreditation and they vote, they had the choice to either go home or to wait. Some decided to wait and, like they would say, protect their votes. Some stayed, some left. So it was peaceful all the way. There was no violence. I did not witness anybody snatching any box. I did not witness anybody being harassed. I did not witness any fighting. And then another issue that I observed was, in some places, the materials arrived, but the people were not there.
Susan Eze, thank you very much for your comprehensive report. Claire, that's comprehensive account that Eze has given us from the coal city. Pacific always, thank you very much. Of course, we hope to get back to you later on in the week while we are discussing matters relating to the election. Once again, Susan Eze, our correspondent from our Enugu Network Center. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we have one last question for the first public relations officer.
Is under threat by germs. Infectious diseases are now the world's biggest killer of adults and children. These infectious diseases are caused by germs. They are everywhere. An average human being comes in contact with over 1 million germs daily in unclean water, dirty surfaces, in the toilets, on cuts and wounds, on your clothes. Germs can cause deadly diseases like typhoid, diarrhea, flu, and cough. To protect your family from germs, use the power of Dettol's One Capsule for surface cleaning in your bathing water, in your laundry water, for first aid to protect your family from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Introducing Dettol Antiseptic Liquid in Sachet for only 40 naira.
Endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association.
A new edition of TV Guide is out with special focus on the role of the media in election coverage. Exclusive on the National Broadcasting Commission, its mandate as the sole regulator of Nigerian media. Dr. Toba Daba then and Ishak Modibo Kawu now. This edition also features the king of stand-up comedy in Nigeria, Ali Baba. NTA standards to be ready for election transmission after decades of abandonment. Find out from the DG transactional elections in our political space. An evil wind that blows no good. DG, National Orientation Agency Cosmos. TV Guide, your indispensable companion, x-rays the impact of social media on electioneering process as electorates present their expectations from incoming government. Meet some TV professionals behind the screen and other inspiring stories in sports, entertainment, and lots more. Grab a copy at the vendor near you or NTA stations nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
All right, well, welcome back. There's still Good Morning Nigeria. We're on the home stretch. Very quickly, first Public Relations Officer. Of course, we all know the security arrangements, that the police being the lead agency. Pockets of violence reported here and there. While we're reviewing the papers this morning, we, of course, read the story with regard to the number of arrests from 128 persons, according to the statement that you issued. But on the social media, and I'm sure you must have seen that, there's been a photograph that's gone viral of apparently a senior police officer who was being manhandled by certain persons in one part of the country. If you have seen that photograph, what has happened since then?
Well, clearly I've seen that photograph, and not only was the treatment method onto that officer condemnable, they are clearly despicable acts. They constitute clear violations of our laws, and the Inspector General of Police have said clearly that the police under his watch will not condone such unwarranted and unprovoked attack on police officers carrying out their legitimate duties. What you saw was a classical example of the kind of risk that police officers and other law enforcement agents face in their day-to-day exercise of their legitimate functions. That officer was out there protecting the electoral system. He was doing what was right and what is right before the law. He was protecting the collective will of our people. He was there discharging his legitimate duties, enforcing the law, and making sure that things go on appropriately. The good thing, however, is that in spite of all the challenges that come with the social media, they also do play some positive roles. Those pictures and all the footages we've gotten are currently forensically being analyzed. The Inspector General of Police are giving very clear instructions. Comprehensive investigations have commenced. We will identify every single person involved in that act. We will track them. We will arrest them. We will prosecute them. We will identify their sponsors. We will go after them no matter how highly placed. That officer is a deputy commissioner of police. He is a very senior police officer. That act amounts to a serious assault on a police officer. We won't take that. in as much as we have that mandate to protect the lives and property of Nigerians and the laws of this country also owe us a duty to also protect us. We can't continue to put our lives on the line every day. We can't continue to stand between risk and our people. We can't continue to take the bullets for our people. We can't continue to take all the heat for our people. And our people will deliberately and without any form of provocation throw us out to the dogs. So we will stand for our rights, we will defend our own, and we call on all well-meaning Nigerians to stand up at this stage, condemn those acts, and stand with us even as we go after the perpetrators of those acts. It won't be taken lying low, it won't be tolerated.
What can you also tell us about the incident we also saw on the social media that happened in Lagos? That's the Ago Palace Way.
That incident is also an eyesore. It is also another clear violation of our laws. But I want to say it is an isolated act. It is an isolated incident. As provocative as it appears, and it does not represent what Lagosians stand for. I am, and I can't be described as a Lagos boy. I was born in Lagos. I went to University of Lagos. I started my police career in Lagos. I've always lived in Lagos. I will always live in Lagos. That incident does not represent who we are as Lagosians. The police in Lagos have also commenced investigations into that. We look at areas where we fell short. We're looking at our response time to that incident. And I will tell Nigerians, where we fell short, we will do everything possible to ensure that we fix them in the subsequent elections. We'll perhaps look at how to improve on our response time and ensure that subsequent elections, such incidents don't occur. But most importantly, everyone that was involved in that incident will also go after them, we'll track them, we'll bring them to book.
All right. Thank you very much, First Public Relations Officer, Assistant Commissioner of Police, Frank Umba. But we're getting the closing thoughts of our guest now. Let's go over to Festus Oguche in Port Harcourt to hear his final word in this conversation this morning.
My final word is that we should look at politics as a game, and there must always be a winner and a loser. The winners will go celebrating, the loser will go not licking his wounds, but also thanking God that he participated in the process. So we should accept the election results as they are, take them as they are, look at it as part of our responsibility to our call to national service, that we should be part of the system in whichever way, even if you lose an election. Positive contribution to the advancement of democracy, advancement of your society, the future of your children. I think so far so good. The police, like I said, acted themselves with utmost decorum. Nobody had made any complaints about the police in this election, and that is quite commendable. Our security infrastructure, security system is quite very much there, but we have to look very critically at the fact at the circumstance of the participation of the military in election, in spite of the judgments of the Supreme Court, the judgment of the Court of Appeal, the judgment of the Federal High Court outlawing their participation. We must abide by the judgments of court. Thank you.
Mr. Oguche, lawyer and civil rights activist, we thank you for finding time to join us from our Port Harcourt Center. Thank you. Let me bring in Ignatius Onkwo now. Just you may take this as your closing remarks. How seamless was it for the physically challenged to also exercise their civic responsibility? I know you personally looked out for that.
Yes, I did. But actually, most of the people we saw that came out to vote were people who have, like we said, physical challenges like legs, and then some of them were properly helped. Some of them they don't even need help to go and vote. And this time around, there was no place, all the polling units, there was no place you see that had an elevated platform. Well, I don't know, it could be consciously planned by INEC or it just happened like that way, but I think it was quite encouraging. I think in 2015, there are some places you go, you find out that you have to help them to climb up to go and vote. But this time, the polling units went, they were all on a flat platform. And I think it's quite encouraging. And then INEC said they created a platform where visually impaired people could vote. Yes, some of the polling units, in fact, it's only one polling unit. I asked them, and they said there was no ballot paper. Yeah, but in some other ones, like my colleague who covered in Buhari, Bruce Lane, the president officer had to even bring the bread ballot paper for him, and he saw, like in Apo resettlement area center, where I went as well. And some other places, we saw the provision of some of these bread ballot paper. But unfortunately, we did not see any of the visually impaired person coming to vote. So we're going to ask the question, is it that they are not aware, they were not fully educated that now you can vote without somebody helping you? Or is it that, it's just a question that needs to be answered. But I know that the voter education this time was quite impressive. The voter behavior, voter behavior is very significant to judging political participation. But I tell you, in 2019, it was quite encouraging. In fact, in Kuje, when I got there, I remember I didn't know who was a security officer and who was a voter, who was an official, even not for the uniform. That even sometimes the police officers were helping to organize and manage the queue. And then you see somebody from a voter coming up to announce on behalf of INEC, make an announcement of what the president who was saying, whose voice was not clear. And party agents, I saw two party agents, they were chatting, they were discussing. I was like, which party? This was the PDP, this was the APC. Quite encouraging. Like before, you see them is like antagonism. But this time, I think the voter behavior was quite encouraging.
Did you witness see and buy?
Well, I didn't. I didn't see any witness anything like that.
All right, that's good. Esther?
Thank you very much.
Briefly.
Yes, briefly. There will be time for postmortem, but as we move into the next elections, I will advise that, that Nigerian voters, let them come out again and exercise their franchise. Let them not tolerate the persuasions, insinuations, enticements by the political class. This is our country. Let us salvage it. Thank you.
All right. It's on that note we'd like to thank our three remaining guests with us on the program. Assistant Commissioner of Police, Frank Umba, who is Force Public Relations Officer. Thank you very much for being with us on Good Morning Nigeria. Esther Uzoma, we'd like to also appreciate your being with us.
Than't you. We haven't seen the last of her.
No, certainly not. She's Deputy Chair of the Civil Society Situation Room for the purpose of this election. And our correspondent, Ignatius Unkwo, thank you for being around. And also to our viewers who have sent in who have sent in their tweets, quite a number of them. Of course, we'll be continuing with the postmortem in the course of the week, and so we'll be able to return to some of the tweets and then the comments that we have brought. Laura Fassi, Goldberg, Faisal Akimboyewa, Caleb Balonga, Mohammed Mustafa, Olubimi Paul, Omer, Mohammed Mustafa again, Ibrahim Modu Ali, Adeniyi, Akejo Olagbaju, etc., etc. Of course, you have all of those ones. Don't forget, NTA has special coverage for the elections as well, which is Nigeria Decides. It's on that note, we'd like to thank you for tuning in to Good Morning Nigeria today. We are back tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Until then, have a nice day. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
Please keep your cool, keep maintaining your calm, and be peaceful as always. The week is very, very pregnant, and we expect good conduct from you. I am Claire Delapu Abdurazak. Watch a repeat broadcast later today at 5 minutes past 5. From all of us, bye-bye.
You are watching NTA, Nigerian Television Authority. For more information and news updates, visit our website at www.nta.ng, or you can follow us on Twitter at NTA News Now, or you can like us on Facebook at NTA Network News. Stay connected on our YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/NTA News Online. Watch our live stream at www.nta.ng/live. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
I am Adeola Omokibi, and the program you're watching is Sports Real. Keep a date with us.
Fans, they don't understand the rules or the laws of the game.
Hello and welcome to that program of yours on the NTA Sports Channel, Knowing Golf.
And thanks for joining us on another edition of Sports Guest on the NTA. My name is Kenem Emma Abodike. Welcome indeed to Saturday Sports Arena on the NTA Sports 24.
It would not be if you continue to just have these vague means of saying these are the yardsticks I want to use.
League Service, a program designed to bring you up to speed with happenings in Nigeria football leagues.
A classico, I tell you, my 3 points is clear. Yes. They go watch match.
Okay, what do you want me to do about it?
Give us light. That's the only thing you've been saying since you came into my office. Maybe your work be that. No, it's my work, but see.
Our government fit do their work if we sef do our own work. No just sit down. Carry wetin dey worry you, go meet who suppose solve am.
Yes.
Una remember for March where all of us come outside come vote? We vote for people wey be say they go represent us for inside government where. So vote, others do election observers, some sef be polling officers. But e never finish o. Make we come together, arrange or join association where we go fit discuss matter wey go make we lives better, go give the people wey we vote for inside government. Make we get involved.
The beauty of democracy rests in the power the system has given to the teeming population to elect an eligible candidate of their choice for any political office. But the right to vote is not a license to kill. Democracy is government of the people, by the people, for the people, where majority carries the vote. It is not a do or die affair. Say no to violence.